welcome to another edition of Active Living. Today we have our wonderful traveler, Jim, who's been traveling all over the world, has just returned from his latest trip from Iceland, and we're going to do a little interview today with Jim and talk about his trip to Iceland and what he found out up there. So tell us, why in the world did you pick Iceland as a place to go to, Jim?
Oh, this is based on my traveling partner, Samantha. She kind of picks the areas that we're going to visit in the world. So this was another area based on what she saw and what we believe would be fantastic, like glaciers and volcanoes and ice fields and the scenery there, the waterfalls. I mean, just fantastic scenery in this small country, which was very pleasant to visit from the standpoint of the people.
Really? So where did you fly into?
Well, we flew from New York to Keflavik, which is an international airport. They don't fly into Reykjavik, because Reykjavik is more for domestic flights, but Keflavik is the international flight.
Okay.
Travel from New York to Iceland is about 4 hours and 40 minutes, so it's not that far, which is kind of neat, you know, and it's just below the Arctic Circle. And from a standpoint of Iceland, a few facts: it's about the size of Ohio. It's about 340,000 people. About 120,000 live in the capital of Reykjavik, and then about 200,000 in the whole metro area. So 60% of the population of Iceland live in and around Reykjavik.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting.
It's a fairly small country then.
Very small
really
country,
small.
yeah. Based on the size of Ohio, I thought it was much larger than that, but it's not. And so we arrived there about 6:30 in the morning. We left New York about 8:30 and got there at 6:30. There's a 4-hour difference between Eastern Standard Time and Iceland time.
Okay.
So we got there 6:30, and it was raining as usual. It almost rained every day. And then we took the 45-minute bus drive into Reykjavik. So it's a neat place to visit.
Sounds like it.
Yes.
Now, how about the weather up there? Is it really cold up there?
Yeah, it was ranged from about 35 to about 55 every day. And intermittently, it had rain during the daytime. There wasn't probably a sunny day that we had. Most of them were sunny, but we had rain every day, no matter what. Maybe for like 20 minutes, and then it would stop, and you go someplace else, it would rain again. But generally, it was pretty clear most of the time. Other than
no snow.
Yeah, we had snow one evening.
Did you?
It had hail and snow. I mean, it accumulated about 2 inches. That was about third day into our trip. And that was really a thing to see as far as hail and snow. Unbelievable.
So it's kind of like Michigan in November, right?
Probably, yeah, probably. Yeah, so our first thing that we saw as we left the hotel about 9:30 in the morning, we went and walked down to downtown Reykjavik. We went to the first building, which was the church. It's the Hallgrim Kría. It was started in 1937. It took 38 years to build. It's a Lutheran church, and it was just the tallest building probably in Iceland. Is about 244 feet high.
Okay.
And you have a view on the top. You can see the whole capital and some of the mountain ranges there. And it was designed, and like I say, took basically 38 years to build. So it didn't complete until almost, what was it, 38 years on to 37, about 1985, 75, I guess it is.
Okay.
And beautiful place to visit, a beautiful organ in there, the pulpit and such. It was really, it almost reminded me of Gaudi in Spain. The columns inside were like trees, and it was beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful church. And in front of the church was Leif Erikson, one of the Viking explorers that came to Iceland, so he was in front of there, so it was kind of neat there. And then we walked downtown and saw a lot of the stores down there. There's probably hundreds of stores down there, little boutique shops, really nice. And then on one of the streets they had two large figurines of the trolls. And trolls are very significant in Iceland because they use this as a scare tactic for the children to behave. So if they said, if you don't behave, the trolls are going to get you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, but it's almost like the Icelandics say, it's like a cock and bull story. You know, it's kind of just to keep the kids straight. You know, so it's kind of interesting. Yeah. Right. So it was kind of neat there. And then we had to go from the standpoint of there's a place called the Bæjarins Bestu Pilsner. It's the best hot dogs in town. Typically, they think that Icelandic people eat a lot of whale meat and such and shark. Right. They do, but the best thing is a hot dog. That 90% of the people have eaten the Icelandic hot dogs. They're 90% lamb and 10% pork and beef. And the neat thing about that is all organic food because they do not allow any live animals to be imported into Iceland.
Oh, really?
So it's all sheep grazed meat, you know, basically the beef and the pork. And it's just amazing how good it is. When you bite into it, it's really snappy and such. And they also have a hot dog that's named after Clinton. It's called the Clinton hot dog. Oh. It's because he ate there at this place.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's a little place no more than 8 feet by 8 feet, and this girl just pushing out hot dogs like you can't believe. And the lineup is continuous. I mean, all day long from about 10 o'clock until 2:30 in the morning on the weekdays, and they're open until 4:30 in the evening on the weekends because of the people who leave the bars. They come and have a hot dog. and you have to have more than one. We ate one first, and then we ate two of them, and it cost about $3 a piece and about $1.50 for a Coke. And it is unbelievable. And the condiments they put on everything, you want everything on it, and you get the onions, the mustard, and they called, one of the things they had was the Romaldi, I think they made of capers and herbs and all that stuff they put on the hot dog.
Wow.
Very tasty, and it's actually excellent. You can't beat it. I mean,
for $3?
For $3, and that's their typical meal they eat. A lot of times they'll eat that, and you can get it any place in like your gas station and such. But this place this woman had, it's been open since 1937. Been just dishing out hot dogs like you can't believe, and it's just unbelievable. It's right in the harbor there, and it's something really to see. And then from there, we went to what we called, let me see, could I talk about this? The Phallological Museum. You won't believe this. This is actually a penis museum of all the different dolphins, whales, and men and everything else that's in this museum here. Is phenomenal. It's unbelievable. It's something to see. It's worth to see. You won't believe it, but everything's in these jars and such. So it's quite a collection there, and it was passed down from a grandfather to the father. And the son now is actually running the business. So it's kind of a neat place to visit. So, but something to see. Never believed it would be in Iceland that you would see something like this. Then, like the next day, we would tour the what they call in Reykjavik the Parliament buildings, the cathedral, the harbor. And one of the neat things in town there was the Hofdye House. This is where Reagan and Gorbachev met in 1986. And this is where that Gorbachev came in and says, well, because of the IBM ballistic missiles and that, they figured there'd be a world war. They figured there'd be time for these leaders to meet. And Gorbachev put on the table that you have to get rid of the SDI to Reagan. He says, no way, no how, and that broke up the meeting, and they didn't meet for a couple of years later when Gorbachev came to Washington, and then after that, the wall came down in 1989, so it was kind of the prelude to ending the Cold War, basically.
Really?
So it was kind of neat, yeah. They met in this house right on the harbor there. It's a white house, and it's a beautiful little home there, so it was kind of neat. So that was good. And then the afternoon, we went to what called the Blue Lagoon, and this is neat. This is where the geothermal springs. They heat the water. It runs between 102 to about 112 degrees. And it's cold outside, but you walk in there, just absolutely just so soothing. I mean, it's unbelievable.
So you guys actually went in the springs?
Oh, yeah. You go in there, you get your bathing suit on and such. Oh, yeah. And it was cold weather. You take a shower and you walk out, and then it's cold, and you walk right into it. And it's just so soothing. They got the little waterfall there, and it pulsates on your back. And like I say, you put this white silica sand on you, and it's very soothing, exfoliates the body. And it was really neat. So both Samantha and I really enjoyed that. That was really fantastic.
Now, don't they heat up there with that geothermal?
Yes. The next day we actually went to a geothermal power plant, and they have many of these in Sweden. And it was, the one we went to had 2 turbines in there and 4 generators. Most of Iceland is heated by 9% of the geothermal springs, and also electricity. So it's the cheapest utilities they have in Iceland. And so it's phenomenal. They're all over Sweden. In fact, they have the aluminum plants are actually there because the power is so cheap. They import the bauxite to make the aluminum. It's melted there.
How do they create the electricity?
From the steam that comes from underground there, and then it steams up there, and it drives the turbines, and the turbines generate the power, and it goes out to the homes. Okay,
so it's all done with no external fuel at all?
No, none whatsoever. It's all by the thermal springs, and they got these huge, like say, turbines in there. Well, you got pictures of them there. You'll see that, and it's really a really nice heat. Basically, it also provides heating for all the greenhouses in Iceland to raise vegetables.
Right.
And we did buy some tomatoes, and that was later in the tour. We bought tomatoes right from the greenhouses where they were actually grown. So it was
I bet they were good.
Oh, they were very tasty, very tasty. It was really neat. So that was kind of the geothermal power plants, and then we went on to what we call the first waterfalls at Skoger, and it was very impressive. And they had a nice museum there. We went underneath the falls. We actually went to the top and saw it coming over the rim there, almost like Niagara Falls, and it's just so pretty, and so green there. It's unbelievable, and just so that was our first one as far as the falls was concerned.
But I don't picture it as being green.
Well, certain spots it is. A lot of places there where the lava is, because of all the volcano action there. A lot of it's black and lava fields. You'll see a lot of the streams going out from the lava areas there.
Right.
But certain areas of Sweden, even Reykjavik, had a lot of trees there and such. So it was pretty good shape there as far as trees and such, but some in the hinterland it's pretty barren.
Right.
And then, like I say, the harbor cities, you know, there's not a whole lot of trees there. So because of the fishing villages that are there, so so that's really the whole thing with with Iceland. It's barren and there's some trees. There's no doubt about that.
It sounds to me like it might be a little bit. I spent 2 years in Newfoundland. It sounds like some of the area there in Iceland would be almost the same, especially the areas around the sea.
Yeah, oh, it's very similar.
You
yeah,
got you know, fairly high cliffs, and you got some what they used to call the barrens, which is kind of like a barren area inland.
Yeah, and you'll see that. I mean, you'll see a lot of boats are actually like behind big, like say, pillars of like hills there, and or rock formations there to protect them from the sea there. So it is like a shelter area that they go to. So it's quite scenic. Let's put it that way. It just reminds you, well, I love to live here because it's so quaint and so relaxed atmosphere. It's unreal. It's just beautiful. I mean,
Do they still have a lot of fishermen up there?
Yeah, there's mostly in the southern part. They have a lot of fisheries there, but not so much in the northern part of Iceland. But the southern part, they have one city there that has a lot of mostly the fishing villages that come there. Yeah, the fishing boats and the fishing villages are mostly in the south part of it. Kind of in the middle at the bottom there. That's where the fishing villages are.
Yeah, well, we're kind of sitting on the dock there right now, and you can see the fishing boats behind us, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. That was one of the last parts of our visit there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So that's kind of neat. So, and then right after that, we went to our first glacier. It was called the Solheim Jökull, and it was really receding. It was a lot of dark ash in there and the black sand and lava, and it was really receding pretty quickly. And that particular day there, we went there. It rained pretty bad, but we got soaking wet because we didn't bring our ponchos and that. Because it was nice and sunny as you're walking out there, coming back, the rain came down real quick. But the receding of that glacier was just phenomenal. So receding so fast. And
but the black, I would assume, is probably from the
original lava from the volcano action.
The volcanoes.
Yeah. So just scraping down the mountains now and bringing that lava with it, and it's really dirty and black. The first one we went to. So, and from that you go to what they call the next town we went to was Reynisfjall. It's a beach, and it had the black lava sand, which is this basically. Here you can see it's a black sand right here. I left in the package here because I took a couple cups of the black sand here. It's a beautiful black beach and very scenic there, and they have really some neat rock formations that are right against the seawall there, and a lot of the migratory birds live there. Now, the only thing we didn't see, we saw the Arctic terns and other birds, but the puffins were not there. They had already migrated someplace else because they're the colorful birds.
Right.
But they were not there. There was none there. So we saw a couple eagles there, and but beautiful area to walk on the beach. They're very realistic as far as the water coming up there, and the backdrop of some of the formation of the rocks was just incredible. How it's eroded the area. So pretty neat there.
Now, are most of the rocks there black, which would be like some of the stuff that comes out of the volcanoes? Like
yeah, a lot of it was black, except some of them were gray colored. And so we saw some kind of brown ones that because they had a lot of layers. It was kind of interesting. The layers of rocks that you saw in the various parts of the island, they were different. Some were gray, some were kind of reddish, and some were you can't believe, just like they're piled up on each other, and how they formed. It's unbelievable. You can't imagine how it was done it's just unusual to see different rock formations there. And then from there, we went to what we call this is kind of a hard word to pronounce, is Jökulsárlón. It's the Glacial Lagoon. This is where there's a huge glacier there, and there was many of the icebergs are starting to break off from the glacier. And we had an opportunity to go in these duck boats that they have at the Wisconsin Dells, and they drive right into the water. Right. And you drive all around these different icebergs there. There were seals in there and floating around, and many icebergs in different sizes, and some were real huge. They were higher than our boat, basically. And you could see on some of the icebergs they had the black ash in there because of the volcano that happened in 2010. And you can see the black serrations within the iceberg itself, and but huge. They're very huge. And then, in fact, the fellow who was driving the boat, he actually took some iceberg from the water, and he actually broke it off and gave it to us to eat. So we chewed it, and it was pretty neat. So
wow.
So that was kind of interesting, and it was cold. I'll tell you, it's very cold there. And that lake was something like 800 feet deep. That where the glaciers is breaking off into the water there before it actually basically goes out into the ocean. The icebergs actually float underneath this bridge. It goes out in the ocean there. So,
Jim, we're going to take just a short little break right here, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Prescription drug abuse is a national epidemic. The new in way to obtain drugs is through parents' or grandparents' medicine chests. Removing prescriptions from your cabinet is the best way to keep drugs out of the hands of our young people. We've got to work together to protect our teens, our seniors, and our environment. Clean out your medicine cabinet today. Please participate in Operation Medicine Cabinet and drop off your unwanted or expired prescriptions at one of our law enforcement drop-off sites in Oakland County. We can't ignore this situation anymore.
We're back with the traveling man, Jim Robeck, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about Iceland. So, Jim, you got it, buddy.
Okay, so, well, next after that was we went to what they called the Thingvellir National Park, and it was kind of a neat area there because it was one of the earliest places where they call it the Skellholt Cathedral. And this is where they had the first parliament, where they decided the laws of the land were actually done in a circle there, and they would meet once a year, and these would be the laws for that particular year that they would abide by.
Okay.
And it was kind of interesting.
Now, the people that were there in the early years, were they mostly Icelandic people, or where did they come from?
Well, a lot of them came from, the northern, like Sweden and Norway and Denmark. And so Denmark was kind of the one that's most prevalent, but the interesting part of that, their language is more attuned to the Norwegians.
Okay.
Not the Danish, but more to Norwegians.
Okay.
It was kind of interesting. I thought it'd be Danish, but
yeah.
But they've stopped rule there. Danish vacated there, I think, in the early 30s, something like that. So they became an independent country. And interesting about this area that we went to in the national park there, they had a rift where actually the earthquake had went through. There's a rift about 6 feet wide where actually you can still see the crack in the the earth. Yeah, so this is where the earthquake going right through there, So it was kind of scary, but at the same time it was kind of interesting to see that. You can see a split of the land there, so it was very scenic in that particular area.
How deep did it go?
Best I could see it was about 13 or 14 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was about maybe 6 feet wide at certain places, up to 3 feet. And it was pretty wide, although you could see it going for long distances there. And then the next area we went to was called Gullfoss Falls, and this consisted of two waterfalls. The first was like 11 meters, which is about 33 feet, and the second one, tears down to the second, was 31 meters. And it goes down to a gorge which runs about 2.5 miles, almost like a miniature Grand Canyon, where the water is cutting through, and it has a depth of about 220 feet from the top of the falls down to the bottom there. It's a very, very scenic and beautiful area to visit there. I mean, they keep the area so clean and good for the tourists. I mean, you can go right up in the falls. There's very little safety nets there. I mean, just a little chain and that's it. So you can be very careful. There's no question about that. And from there, I try to cover a lot of these points. We went to the Struker, which is the spouting springs where the geysers are.
Okay.
And we saw these geysers, and one that erupts about every 4 minutes. Surprisingly, that steamboat in the United States is the largest as far as the geyser reaches between 90 to 120 meters.
Right.
And the one in Iceland, they reach anywhere between 70 to 80 meters. And Old Faithful is number 3. I thought Old Faithful was the largest.
Okay.
But the one in Steamboat, I guess in Colorado, is the largest one. So, and we saw there was a little geyser that only rises about 2 feet, but they're bubbling all over the place as you're walking through the geyser field there. So
now this is warm water as well, right?
Yeah, it's warm water. Yeah,
okay.
It is. It's very salty. You can see, and when it actually erupted and came down, you can see the swirling of the water going down like a big hole. It was kind of. I got a picture of that. It was very unique, and see how that water. I don't know if it went clockwise or counterclockwise. So I didn't know which way it went because what some parts of the earth, if it was clockwise or counterclockwise. And then beyond that, then we went through what we call a lot of the glacier fields. And this is like the night before it snowed, and we saw the snow on the ground about 2 inches with the hail and such. So very scenic, and it was all unpaved roads that we went through. It was very, very scenic. And so from there, from those fields, then we went to what they call, we stayed in a specific town there in Bornegas, I think it was, and this is where we had the hothouse tomatoes and such, and there was steam right there. We saw the steam coming from the ground there, which they used to, heat the greenhouses.
Right,
and it's very slick. Then we went to what they call an area called, Snæfellsnes, and this was a peninsula.
Say that again, Jim.
Snæfellsnes. The way I'm sure they're going to butcher me and say that's not the way they pronounce it in Iceland. A lot of good museums there, and what was beautiful about that, they have these scenic cliffs. They're almost like the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland.
Oh yeah, right.
Beautiful, just scenic, was unbelievable. The rock formations and the balancing rocks and such, and you're just something to see. And again, it was cold and windy, and this is where we actually ate at a restaurant there. This woman opened up the restaurant just for us, and it only can hold like 24 people. And we had a bowl of soup. I think a lamb stew soup was like $18.
Ouch.
With some bread, and that's about it, and water.
Wow. But
it was very tasty. It was a full meal. It was really nice. And then we had the opportunity to then go down to the beach, and this is where as we walked along the beach, they had these rocks which are supposed to be pretty, let's say, helpful to your health and such. And this whole beach was covered with all these particular rocks here. And what was noted about this, there was an English trawler that actually sunk there, and the iron from the various boats is still on the beaches there. So they will not disrupt it. They'll leave it there forever,
really?
Perpetuity. They will not leave it there. And as we walked along the cliffs there was a rock formation in the water, looked like a dragon or an alligator head.
Okay.
And it was really neat. I mean, you say, oh, that's an alligator. You know, it was kind of interesting to see that. And in that area also, within Iceland, they have a lot of these emergency homes that you can actually, as you're hiking through the country, you can sleep there. It's like a shelter. They had food in there and a bed and things of that nature. Yeah, they're all located all over Iceland. So if you want to trek and hike all the way through Iceland, these are shelter places you can hold up in. And they're in orange, and they're very visible, and just basics, just to get out of the weather if need be there. So that's really what they're there for. And
so do they have a lot of hikers there?
We didn't see much there while we were there, so I don't know if it's done in the wintertime or more in the spring and summer, but this was at the end of the season. We're at the end of the season when we went to Iceland, so a lot of the places were closing, the hotels, all these things were starting to close down. Even this lady who had the restaurant, they had to call her to open up just for us, so it was kind of interesting there. So that was good. And then,
so were you with a large group?
Our group was about 22 people.
Okay.
So it was a very small group. It was real nice. And
so it was worth their while to open a restaurant?
Yeah, it was. I mean, for $18.
$16 or $18.
And the beer, you know, whoever had beer, you know, like the beer was $6, $7, you know, and so it was worthwhile for them.
Sure.
So it was just at the end of the season there. And then from there, we went to what they call in Hellesandr, which was a fishing village there, where they had an outdoor museum. You were able to walk it and such. And this is the first opportunity, well, the second opportunity we were looking for to find the Northern Lights. Oh. And they're very skittish. You know, we went out one night in a bus. We waited for about an hour or so, and it was so cold out there, we gave up, you know. Then we went to this town here in Hellesandr, and we went out one evening, and we saw flashes of the Northern Lights. It was very faint, it was green, it was quick, and it came through, and you could see the columns coming through. There was kind of a greenish figure there.
Right.
And that was the only time we saw them. We were hoping to see them really flashing there.
Okay.
It's supposed to have been a season, but it didn't quite materialize, but at least we saw a glimmer of it,
So that's good.
But it was good, you know, so we at least saw part of the Northern Lights there. And then we went to what they call the area of, what they call it Dritvik, D-R-I-T-V-I-K, and once again we walked along these beaches which had the stones and the lava sand here, and once again on these beaches here they had what they call a test your strength. And they had these large rocks. They were out in a row. There's 4 rocks. They were like the 23 kilo, a 54, 100 kilo, and 154 kilo. So you can see what your man strength was if you try to pick them up. So I was able to pick up the 23 kilo, which is about 48 pounds, something like that.
Right.
Couldn't pick up the next one, which is about 108 pounds. Couldn't pick that son of a gun up. So it's your strength, you know, all these Vikings, you know how strong they are. So they were able to pick up these rocks, and it was kind of neat that
they didn't have any handles on those rocks.
No, they didn't. You had to get underneath it, and you know, at my age with a bad back, I didn't even try to do that. I tried, but it was just impossible. I just couldn't do it. So, that was kind of neat. They had them on the beach. There was a couple areas that we saw that where they had these rocks.
Really?
So yeah, it was kind of neat that they had them out there for people to try it out. So the nice thing about making these trails there, we saw a lot of what I call these mushrooms. And I would talk to people and say, those are fun guys. So these are fun guys watching us as we're walking the trail there, you know. So a lot of fun guy there.
Right.
So, but they were nice. There's a lot of beautiful ones. They had eyes on there and everything else. They were very, very unique. Very unique. So, and then we, after that, we went to what they call this place. It was called the Bjarnarhofen. It was a shark farm. This guy,
really?
This guy, he would take the sharks that they would catch for the fishermen, and they didn't want them, so they gave to this guy, and he would process them. They were 700 to 800 pound green sharks.
Wow.
And he would cut them up and put them in these big plastic bins and cure them there for like, I don't know, I think it was like 3 weeks, and then from there they had to hang them up in these barns like tobacco.
Right.
And they would cure there for, I don't know, maybe another 2 months or something like that. So we had some there. He gave us little pieces of it, and we ate it when you ate it, you had to have a shot of schnapps. So you had that because it was not that great tasting. Okay.
How about the schnapps now? Was this?
Oh, that was good.
Was this the 100 proof stuff?
Oh, it was. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, you felt it going down, but it was very smooth and very good. So, but you had to have the
shark and schnapps.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a tradition, like in mostly the northern areas like that. They say fish must swim in water, so when you eat fish, you got to drink some schnapps or some liquor. Yeah, so that's the whole tradition, I guess. So you get drunk pretty quick if you eat a lot of this stuff here. So, but he processed them there, and he had a nice little business there, a nice little museum. He had a lot of artifacts in there, like seals and foxes and a lot of nautical stuff there, and beautiful. And he was making money off that, so it was pretty good.
Okay.
It's the same thing with also another farmer who went to that experienced the volcano, and he had a nice museum there. We took and saw the video and such, and he survived it. His farm survived it. Okay. And they made a nice little living off of that. You know, they had some rocks there and some good pictures and such, but they stayed it, and luckily they survived. So there was a lot of people that were killed during that time.
When these volcanoes go off, did it affect the cities a lot? You know?
They didn't say that, but I think it affected, because it's mostly toward the middle and toward the eastern part of the island, because Reykjavik is on the western side.
Okay, so it didn't.
It did, because normally the Westleys would push it the other way, so it wouldn't really come to Reykjavik.
So they were pretty lucky.
Yeah, they were very lucky. Yeah. So, but those farmers and such that lived in the area there, it's a little scary. Let's put it that way, because that molten stuff was coming out was pretty interesting, and so he had some nice pictures there and a good video to see what happened.
Oh, he did.
Oh, yeah, and the amount of ash that was on his implements and farmland and such. So, but it was pretty significant what they went through, and
I believe it.
They were nice people. They were really very interesting, and they were very hospitable. I mean, they just treated us very well. Most of the people in Iceland treated us very well. I had no issue whatsoever. So then from there, we went to an area where they had a black church. It was all black wood and such, and it was kind of on the coast there. And they had these dugout areas that people actually had shelter. When they came off the sea, they would go into the part and then house themselves. And the last thing would be the village of Steikisholmer. This is where we went on the boat. We went out in the fjord there, and we dug the bottom of the river, and we got some scallops, and we ate them fresh out of the shells. And that was fantastic. And the last thing we did was we had dinner that night at the Revolving Restaurant in Reykjavik, and that was the end of that trip, which was fantastic.
Then you're off to the United States again.
Back again.
So, what's your next trip going to look like, Jim?
It's going to be very.
When's it coming up, by the way?
It's coming out this Sunday. We're going to Laos.
Oh my God!
With Samantha and I, we're going to Laos to see her village and see where she was born. She hasn't been. Well, she came there when she was about 3 or 4 years old. She's been about 37 years since she's going to.
Is your traveling companion?
Yes. So we're going to go there, leaving on Sundays for 23 days. So it's going to be an interesting part of our trip to go into the back tribal areas and see what's going on.
Sounds like you spend more time traveling than you do at home.
That's a good idea. Rolling Stone gathers no moss, right?
Well, you got that right.
So it's great to visit these countries. This will be really interesting because we're going to be unescorted, so it's all on our own.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, so we're all on our own to do all their accommodations, the buses, and whatever you have to have, so it's all going to be done by ourselves.
Well, Jim, we want to thank you very much for joining us today. You've been very, very interesting. It sounds like you had a great trip.
We did.
And we're looking forward to your next report from Laos.
All right, so that'll be good.
Well, thanks for joining us again.
You're welcome.
And thank you for having us, coming into the studio today.
Love to do it.
All right, bye now.